Hello and welcome to the show. I'm here on BeamNG Drive for some more downhill chaos. We start with a Chevrolet Nova. I had, shall we say, limited expectations for this car because this is very much a road car. And we are driving on quite a nasty off-road course. It is also rear-wheel drive. Now, there was a little bit of options for the suspension. There was some heavy-duty suspension parts, as the hubcap has already fallen off. However, when you add them to this car, it lowers the ride height. And seeing as some of the bumps here are very nasty, I figured it was better to go with the standard suspension. Things did not quite go that well to plan. On the first run, I managed to spin it on a relatively straight bit. Not the greatest piece of driving I have ever done. I did make it a bit further down the course. It was so rough that the boot managed to pop open. That is how much this car gets bounced around. Yeah, this is a pretty tough course for the Nova to deal with, and sure enough, I just try to carry too much speed across a bump. Car gets airborne and attacks a tree with its sort of roof. That's quite a bit of damage. The car is still working. Having suffered that, I mean, okay, the roof line is somewhat, not in a good position for the driver there, but the car survived the bumps. And I have to say, this Nova was remarkably strong with the punishment that it took, and it could still keep going with. The next one may have slightly beached the car on the edge of the course. Again, it was a case of I was trying to carry too much speed across some bumps, and the car was bouncing, unsettled, and I couldn't stop it in time, and that time managed to end right on the edge. Trying to go around some of the tighter hairpins at the start of the course, I almost managed to get away with a complete 360. I didn't quite. It was going so well, and then we fell off, and then I frantically tried to stop it from falling off further. Car, again, still working, despite taking its tumble off the side of the hill. Car is still okay. It's a I think I only ever properly killed it a couple of times. It is a resilient car, this one. It is a very bouncy car. This time I was just trying to turn, and there wasn't any turning, and then we're falling. I'm trying to save, it's not going to be saved, and we roll some more, take an even bigger drop off the side and clonk everything. And that was one of the few times that did actually completely kill the car. This it's not going anywhere from that. I'm not even sure if the first impact didn't. The first impact did a lot of damage. There was a heavy hit on the front of the car. It was the bumps though that were. It was just incredibly hard to deal with it. Trying to take any speed with this car was very difficult when it just look at how much the back end is bouncing. I just got it under control coming into the tunnel, but I hit the bump in the tunnel, and then there was another very big bounce, and now we spin and roll, and another one for good measure off a tree, and there we go, stuck the landing. Again, car is working. You can see the rear axle is all twisted and out of position, but the car is still working, still drivable, and actually had still relatively straight steering, which, considering the tumble it had been down, the exhaust is slightly hanging off. Considering the tumble that had been down, it did well. It put up a fair fight with these. It took quite a while, I will be honest, with the Nova, and you really could not take much speed with this car. There was an awful lot of being cautious around here, because the minute you tried to get any speed, it would do this. Again, I was just trying to put down a small bit of power. I just wanted to go a little bit quicker, sort of go above 30 miles an hour on the course. And I got it slightly wrong, and of course, we go falling off again. Car's still working. It took most of that impact was probably on the sort of the back end of the car, as you can see, and we've got some interesting camber going on the rear wheel. But the car was still working. I mean, you'll see on the speedo that this is not a particularly quick run. This time I was really slowing the car down to attempt to get it through the tunnel, and still the back end and the front end are bouncing around like crazy. I'm still fighting for control of the car. Amazingly, I made it all the way through all of that, and we come up towards the final turn, tried to take it flat out like every other vehicle had managed to do so far. I couldn't. The Nova couldn't quite do it. The three vehicles that I ran in the first episode all were flat out through that corner, and I just assumed the Nova would. and I drove into the bridge. Yeah, I wasn't too pleased with with that one. I mean, it's such a tough corner because it's completely blind almost as well, that final turn. You just kind of turn in and hope, and by the time I realised I'd ballsed up, there was nothing I can do. You can see here, we've already shattered the rear windscreen from the bumps, and again, another slow controlled rollover for the Nova. It did that a lot. There are quite a few clips here, quite a few clips I didn't use for this, of just very similar things. You're going along and the car starts bouncing from side to side, and then there we go. We're on the roof and off the tree, and just about stopped before going over there. I think that's where I beached the car before. Quite a good catch tree. Again, the rear window is already shattered. This bit here was quite a tricky corner. You want to kind of stick to the left there to avoid the very nasty bumps on the inside of the course, but if you do that, then you have a very narrow line, and I got it a little bit wrong, and sure enough, the car has gone falling off down the side. But again, we're working, and still with remarkably good handling for a car that took a fall off a mountain. As I said, did take a while to get the clean run out of the Nova. You have to be incredibly careful through this opening part. You saw the D-Series pickup truck last time out. Four-wheel drive car was struggling a lot for grip. There you go. I love the hubcaps falling off on this car. It's fantastically amusing. Yeah, we saw the D-Series, a big four-wheel drive off-road car, struggling with traction, struggling with grip around here. So you can imagine what a rear-wheel drive muscle car would be like. You just got to be so careful on the throttle. You can't use any power. You can't try and handbrake the car and slide it through the corners. It doesn't work. You're just going to spin out with this. So you got to be patient through the early parts. You got to be patient also around here. But even on this run, the rear end of the car is bouncing around, trying to frantically get the vehicle turned and get it settled. And again, across this next bump, it's still not particularly happy down here. The front clonks the ground slightly, then the back bounces up massively in the air. Now you can get a little bit of speed up through here, but this is where you got to be careful. You want to try and stay to the left unless you want to fight to the bumps. I ended up staying in the middle of the course, and again, just getting bumped around little bits. Have a small scrape on a tree. I was really struggling to get the car turned up there. Did not want to turn to the right. Then we can get again a little bit more speed can be gained here. We're coming up towards the tunnel, and still the car is bouncing around. It keeps looking as if it's almost going to ping itself up and roll over. Through the tunnel, things are always quite scary. Gets slightly saved on the exit with that small brush on the wall, stops the car from almost rolling over, and then it's flat out down here. Probably about the only part of the track that is flat out. A little bit of a lift this time round, just to make sure that we get it across the line, and the Chevy finishes slightly sideways and is now pointing backwards. This was a difficult car, a very difficult car to drive down here. It's just not suited to the severity of the off-road terrain. It's an incredibly tough course for some of these road cars. I've now got to do a 3-point turn or 6 or 7-point turn to get the car turned around inside the tunnel. Up next, we have got the Covet, a great fun little car to drive this one. Probably one of the best handling cars you'll find in BeamNG. It's a lovely vehicle to race around. I have got the rally version of the car. However, as you can see, it's not exactly got a high ride height here. And this course is very, very rough on the car suspension. So I certainly had quite a bit of concern about this car dealing with some of the bigger bumps. I needn't have worried, because of all the vehicles that I have driven, this so far has been the best equipped to deal with this course. It's had very little problems in the same way the other cars have. It drives pretty damn well. I mean, you can see here, yeah, the bumps get the car in the air a little bit, and on this particular occasion, it very nearly gets away from me. But you can carry what feels like a lot more speed in this than you can in some of the other cars. Admittedly, that I did come from driving the Nova to driving this, so of course it's going to feel a lot faster. But you could carry more speed over the bumps. I got it wrong and ended up off the side of the cliff with the Covet, and the back wheel is kind of where the rear window is almost on that one. Yeah, had a little bit of an off, but it certainly felt like you could carry. It certainly felt like it dealt with the bumps very, very well. I mean, they are still some pretty big hits on the car here, as I'm trying to carry more speed, but you feel like you can go faster with this car. With the Nova, it was very everything had to be incredibly cautious, and even then you still had accidents. Whereas with this, it felt like I could push it more, and I was having a lot higher speed accidents with the Covet. Makes for more spectacular crashes, yes. But yeah, it certainly felt like you could push the car more when you did have an off. It was a big one. Almost got it stopped. Almost got it stopped in time. We lost a wheel and now tumbling and attacked a tree with the car. The Covet didn't survive quite as well as the Nova did. If the Covet fell off the mountain, it probably wasn't going to be working. Certainly isn't going to be working when it's lost the wheel. The front bumper didn't last particularly long. On quite a lot of the runs, it was easy to have that thing knocked off because of the severity of these bumps. Trying to carry speed through the tunnel didn't really work. Snapped the front wheel and then clipped a tree on the outside. The tree that I thought would claim many victims, the one that you can see there just on the edge of the track, didn't have too many problems with it this week. I expected there to be more issues with running into that. It's the getting through the tunnel that's actually really rather difficult because of the big old bump on the inside. Again, trying to get some speed, that's not quite the right place to get some speed, and then we crush the roof in. Yeah, that's a nasty impact. I mean, the roof line is almost at the same level as the bonnet is after that crash. That's a pretty hefty shunt. Again, trying to carry the speed down here. I get on the brakes to try and slow it down, but it's not quite enough. It's another bounce off the mound on the inside of the tunnel into the wall, and then we continue to spin on our roof all the way, and there we go. Just about stopped. Snap the front wheel again on the inside of that tunnel. Got to be very careful in there. You got to be slower than you want to be, really. Again, another clip on a bump and a big roll for the Covet as we bounce off a rock and then bounce off the road and into the lake we go with this car. And yeah, this and the Moonhawk, I think, are the only vehicles to have found their way into the lake from actually on the mountain. After a little while, I did get a clean run with the Covet. Certainly the easiest car that I had today. As I said, a lot of the times when I had accidents with the car, it was because I was trying to go even faster with it. Because it felt like you could get some good speed out of the vehicle. These first couple of corners, I've never really had any issues with these hairpins. I mean, you see, it's a lovely handling car compared to some of the vehicles, and because it's front-wheel drive, I don't get the same oversteer, the same problems that you get with the Nova, with the Moonhawk, and even with some of the four-wheel drive cars to that extent. It was nice to drive down here. Definitely the nicest of the lot to drive. Might not be the most powerful. Might not be the quickest sort of on the acceleration front, but certainly the nicest one to drive. Again, trying to be brave here. I get quite lucky with the running across the bumps there. It could have ended a lot worse. The way that the corner kind of curves there, it sucks you into trying to be on the inside almost. And I ran across them, but the Covet had no problems. Then as we come into the tunnel, I jumped on the brakes, this time managing to control it through there. We back and gets chucked up in the air on the exit, and then it is a flat-out run to the line for the Covet. We have no running into the bridge this time, as it's across the line, and the front bumper just about hung on. There we go. For the entire run, but it was only just. Damage-wise, well, aside from the front bumper and the slightly cracked-up windscreen, as you can see on the rear wheels, this course does completely collapse the rear suspension. The car survives and is quite quick even with collapsed rear suspension, but you can see it's quite a lot lower on the rear than it was when it started. Our third and final vehicle is the Sadler from GTA 5. You may recognise this one. I also managed to turn the lights on and couldn't turn them off. I got the hazards going and then I couldn't turn them off again. I pressed buttons and may have slightly broke it. This is a big four-wheel drive, I think it's four-wheel drive, off-road truck, and you would expect it to do relatively well. I mean, this is an off-road course after all. It's got some decent ride height. I did have, again, a little problem with the sliding. That's a fairly common bloody thing to do with this course, just trying to get the power down up the hill. The other big downside with this truck, if you like, is it is rather large. In fact, it's a massive, great big thing, and its handling is shall we say, not the most responsive. It is a bit of a pain getting this around the corners, because it is, certainly the early hairpins, it is a pain getting this around because it's such a huge bloody truck. And then we have some bounces, and then that's off a tree, and we're going to do a flat spin all the way down the mountain, almost. There we land in a bush, and the car, well, the truck is quite the mess at the at the bottom of the course. Yeah, this was a tough vehicle to drive down this course. I was expecting this to be pretty good. I was expecting it to be a bit like the D series, but it wasn't quite. It was partly, I think, because it was very large and slightly unmaneuverable. The other problem you got with it is it bounced around quite a lot. That was my bad on just miscalculated quite where the truck was. Just nicked the tree that sort of tore the back end of the car apart, and then I had no more. I had no time to stop it from soaring off the cliff. But the problem that you'll see most with this is bouncy. That's a very big bounce from a truck. I'm not. And then we get pancaked on the road. That is a big old bounce from the rear of the truck. And again, I think the length of the vehicle doesn't help it. Like the front wheels, maybe I'm slowing down, going over a bump somewhere. The front wheels will clear it, and then the back hits it hard, and that throws the back of the car up in the air. And then we have a problem, and then we end up, as you see there, at the bottom of a hill in a ditch. You have to be very careful with the bumps in this car. Again, the back end just wants to spend all of its time in the air. The truck is actually still working from that collision. I tried to see if I could rescue. I can't. It's stuck. It isn't going to fall any further down, but yeah, it's well and truly stuck. And this tunnel was rather scary with the Sadler. If I got far enough to get to the tunnel without bouncing off the course earlier on, yeah, it was a bit tough getting through there. You see, I'm trying and I just can't save it in time. It's getting thrown around again. Just get the back end caught on the tree, and more big oversteer moments through the first hairpins, trying to frantically. I tried my best to correct it. It's just I couldn't quite get it in time, and then we again have another pancake try. It does pancake quite nicely when you fall off the mountain, but yeah, it's a lot more difficult than I expected it to be. More bouncing towards a tree. There are plenty of clips of just sort of the simple bounce and then into a tree because I can't stop it in time. This one was a bounce into a tree and then a fall off and then a slightly roll down the side of a mountain. This time, the truck amazingly survived. It was still working after that. I mean, it doesn't really steer anymore. The front wheels are slightly ruined, in honesty, but the actual engine and everything was all still working. This it took quite a while, probably about a similar time as it took for the Nova to get a clean run from the Sadler, because it was just, yeah, it was a bit of a pain. It was oversteery through here. You could do silly things, and you had to be very slow when it came to the bumps, because the minute you tried to take any speed at all with this vehicle, it will get chucked up in the air. You also have to be very careful, much like with the Nova, you have to be very careful through the first few corners not to get the vehicle sliding. It would, for some reason, the first hairpins here seem extra slidey. The cars, certainly the rear-wheel drive vehicles, seem to be really struggling to put any power down. I mean, on this run, this truck is still, that's a huge bounce from the rear of the truck, and still we're having it bounced around and thrown about over the course. This next section, you know, trying to get a little bit of speed up, trying to get the sort of the truck turned in ready. Again, I get the sort of the running across the bumps, but it's okay, just about line with the Sadler. Again, trying to get a little bit more speed out of the truck. Again, I was trying to steer it. That's the second time I clipped that tree. I was trying to steer it away, but it was just being carried towards it on the bumps. It took the door off, but it didn't really lose me that much momentum, so I thought bugger it and carried on. Made it through the tunnel. Actually, decent speed through the tunnel that time round. A little bit of luck, a little bit of help on the bumps, and then it is around the final corner and across the line for the pickup truck. Yeah, this is not a particularly easy vehicle to drive. Damage-wise, survived pretty well. We lost the door from the clip on the tree. I mean, the front took some serious knocks on this. It took some really heavy knocks. But the bumper is slightly looser, slightly hanging off, but it survived pretty well. it survived the course, yeah, fairly well. Anyway, on to the times, and unsurprisingly, the Covet goes well. It is only 0.2 of a second off the Sunburst. That's a good time from the Covet, a 121.2. Definitely the easiest car I had to drive. The main problem with the vehicle was it had issues with the tunnel. That's where I think I lost the time, was trying to get it through the tunnel because it was so small and light. It really did get thrown around by there, so you had to slow down a lot more for the tunnel. The Sadler didn't do as badly as I thought it would on times, a 127.6. Okay, it's a few seconds off the Moonhawk and the D series, but considering the problems I had with that thing bouncing around and the length of it, that's not too bad a time. While the Chevy Nova is at the bottom, a 144.4. It's just not built for this sort of terrain. It just can't quite deal with the bumps, and then when it comes to try and use any power, it spins the wheels, and then you spin the car, so you got to be very careful with everything. Yeah, funnily enough, the muscle car is not really suited to a rather nasty off-road course. But there we go. That is it for this video, guys. All the mods that I've used in this are going to be in the description. You can find all the links in there, so you can go and check them out yourself and have a play around with them. However, that is it from me, so thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.